Welcome to application exercise 14.16, and this is my presentation about an annual report. And I do this for the company BirdLife International, and this for their 2021 report. Let's get started. All right, so in the report, one of the first things they listed was kind of the state that the company is in and kind of where the birds were and the environment and how either we've gotten more birds extinct or kind of the population for all kinds of species of birds overall international. So out of 11,000 species on the IUCN red list, which is this list that's right above on top, 40 species were brought to a higher threat level. So 40 species went from vulnerable to endangered or moved down in the threat list. So they got worse, endangered to critically endangered. Luckily, no species got extinct this year, and none got extinct from the wild as well. And then 78 species were lowered to a different category. So they went from vulnerable to near threatened, and as we can see, a bunch went to least concern, which that's a great thing if they're least concerned on there. Some of the highest profile changes, there are 3 common African raptor birds that have been brought from endangered due to the loss of habitat, poisoning, and poaching. They went down to endangered on there. And then the Cialis paradise flycatcher, it went from critically endangered to vulnerable, which is great. That population has increased over the past 20 years, and they're now getting to a point where they can almost get to near threatened. The black neck crane also went from vulnerable to near threatened, which that's amazing to hear because that makes us know that we're doing the right thing with the restoration and protection of its wetlands. And then case study for Australia's birds that they had. Due to the major fires in 2019 to 2020, it had killed millions of species and birds. The species were ones that were critically endangered, got closer to being extinct. Luckily, none of them became extinct. And then it caused a bunch of the other species on the island needing to be reassessed. Specifically on Kangaroo Island, all 17 endemic subspecies have thought to lost more than 30% of their population, which is concerning because with climate change, it's possible that these events will start increasing more likely. So maybe their populations may get wiped out if they do not evolve and adapt, or if we can do something to kind of control this. So the second part of the report was about pressure. This chart here shows the biggest threats that are affecting bird species. The top ones are agriculture, logging, hunting, trapping, some invasive species. All those are big threats to the birds, specifically agriculture. We're clearing out lands, destroying their habitat so they're not able to have a place to repopulate and a safe place to be. So they're getting hunted, trapped, sold to other people, logging, destroying their habitat, just all those things that affect them significantly. Some of the smaller ones that should not be overlooked are gathering terrestrial plants, dams and water management, human disturbance, pollution. Those are still big issues. They're not as big as like agriculture, but they're still important for us to know and be aware of so we can fight those advances before they get too bad, especially with pollution, air pollution, light pollution, all those types. They're affecting species, and it gets worse with the human disturbance. And then COVID-19, they had a negative effect on them. It brought on the international bird conversation. with restrictions on travel, wages, fieldwork, conservation, and interaction with others. Uh, with social distancing, we're not able to interact as much as with each other, um, less field work, and then it also made the government turn away from environmental issues and funding conservations due to the focus on the pandemic and trying to focus more on a vaccine and how to help people during it and turning a blind eye really to the species. So, um, with the reducing of law enforcement, it led to a bird known as the giant ibis, which is currently critically endangered to be poached and hunted, and many other birds that were hunted during this time due to just not having enough staffing, due to not enough funds being put into these conservations. So on here, you'll see this list, this little pie chart. So important bird and biodiversity areas, or known as IBM. That's what this chart's about. So at least 20% of IBAs are covered and protected by conservations, and those conservations are protected with um, law enforcement or other enforcement to help poachers stay away from those areas. And at least 45% are partially protected. And then there's 35% of these IBAs that are not covered by any kind of enforcement, which 40%, 46% of these areas in each IBA are not covered and protected, which is up 35% more from the year 2000. And since 2020, the Convention on Biological Diversity, they aim to prevent extinction from known species by at least 2020. Even though some species did become extinct, they were able to prevent at least 18 birds from being extinct during this time, which is great because it kind of helped us learn um, more ways to help prevent those species from becoming extinct, and ways we can apply that in the future to hopefully not have any more extinctions of species. The greatest threat, it also proved that the greatest threat was loss of habitat, invasive species coming into their environments, agriculture, which results in loss of habitat, and then hunting for these wild birds or near endangered birds. And then that's on their case study on the conservation efforts since 2000 or 2010. And then the case study on the IBA for penguins, which will lead to a proposed MPA, which is marine protected areas. So scientists created an IBA for 4 penguin species that are located in Antarctica. These are important due to the sites. These sites would help increase those species population from anywhere around 49 to 100%. And this will need help from a creation of a MPA, which is the Marine Protected Area. And that network will also be able to offer guidance to where decision makers should act before it gets too late with these penguin species. And that is the annual report for the BirdLife International Company. And thank you so much for listening.